I like having music. Boom. What's going on, guys?
Yo.
This is the Connect Podcast, episode number 27. Matt is out of town this week and not able to be here, and so I have invited Alex Stadler, who is a Crossroads resident here at Crossroads, currently serving at our Fort Lupton location, doing awesome, wonderful things up there. And also, magically, today, we have Ian Duran.
Yeah.
Ian is a 45-year-old male.
Yeah.
Finding himself.
Going on 46.
Going on 46. His birthday is next week. No, Ian is in high school. He is part of the innovation production team and the broadcast production team and doing all kinds of awesome things. And he is here to represent.
Yeah. Represent the
Gen-
46-year-old
No.
generation.
The Gen.
Oh, the Gen Z. Okay.
Yeah, the Gen Z.
Yeah.
Ian is our Gen Z rep. What are you representing?
Oh, I'm a solid millennial.
Solid millennial.
91.
Yes, 91.
91.
Okay, and I'm coining a term today. I'm coining it the mixer, because I don't know that I'm fully millennial, and I'm definitely not fully Gen X either.
Yeah.
So I'm calling my generation the in-betweener. I'm a mixer. Gen mixer.
Gen Mixer.
Yeah.
Own your label, man.
That's right. Oh. Don't label me. You need to back off. So before we jump into our topic today, we're actually going to be looking at the church through the generations and just culturally, what are people looking for when it comes to spirituality? And so that's where we're going to go. But before we dive into that, tomorrow, or when this posts, we'll post this tomorrow. Thursday is draft day.
Yeah.
Yes, and so I thought it would be great to hear it. Ian, the football is the love of his life. That's all he does.
It's my only passion.
That's right. And the reality is he doesn't like football. I don't know that you like football at all. Do you like sports?
Yeah, I like a lot of off sports.
Like cricket?
Yeah, like cricket.
Bocce ball?
Oh,
Lawn darts?
I'm really getting into boxing now that we went to
Yes.
that,
Yeah, me too.
It was definitely inspiring.
Would you fight me? Would you take my fight?
I don't think that we're not in the same weight class, I don't think.
I bet you we are.
I
bet you we are.
Yeah.
I won't let you. I've started lifting weights since we went.
That's true.
So we went to Iowa for our practical living episode, and we're hanging out with all of these like MMA guys and UFC guys, and we didn't communicate about this, but both of us came back and were like, I got to work out. I felt way too little around those guys.
Yeah.
So I've gained 4 pounds.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that one dude's arm was like the size of my head.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I remember the first time we went to a restaurant after the COVID lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
We went to View House, kind of down the street by us, and all sports were still closed down, right? And so on the TV, they had professional cornhole
Yeah.
on ESPN. So if you don't get into working out, there are options.
That's still on ESPN, the Ocho.
That's all they had back then.
So NFL draft is it's happening, and I know that there's lots of speculation. I just kind of wanted your quick feedback. Pick number 1, Denver Broncos.
Oh, us?
What are they doing? What do you think?
Dude, I have no idea.
What do you want them to do?
What do I want them to do? So we have a top 10 pick.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask me, you say who of our available choices is a top 10 pick, and you pick them. I don't care the position.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
The thing, so Garrett Bowles.
Yeah.
Like, look back. Let's go back in history. For was it just 2 years, maybe 3 years? They were like, Garrett Bowles is terrible, and he's never going to make it. And they kept saying, he's not going to be on the team next year. He's not going to be on the team next year. And then last year, he has like a Pro Bowl type season.
Yeah.
What's to say Drew Lock can't do the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, they were given stats yesterday on the radio. I think it's 42% of first-round quarterbacks get an extended contract.
Yeah,
so
it's low.
Yeah, it's low.
I'm just saying, I feel like give him an off season, let him work out and grow up a little bit, and see what he can do this year. Maybe he's going to be better. I don't know. Everyone counts people out so quickly. So
yeah, it was a weird season, and I'm not convinced there are better options out there. So it's like, just have the best team you can have, and make what you got work.
I'm tired of thinking, hey, if you draft the right guy, that'll solve all your problems. I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. Draft day is always fun. Have you seen the movie Draft Day?
No.
You should see the movie Draft Day.
Talk about this. I don't watch a whole lot of movies.
You should watch the movie Draft Day.
Yeah.
It's good.
It's on the list.
Have you seen the movie Draft Day?
I have not.
There's one F-bomb, so
Uh-oh.
prepare yourself. It's at the end.
I'll have to prepare myself.
That's right.
I like Moneyball. That's fun.
Moneyball is also good. There are more F-bombs in Moneyball
Yeah, I don't remember.
than there are in Draft Day. But it's the same kind of idea. I mean, it's about an NFL GM.
Oh, is it?
He's the GM of the Browns, actually, I think,
Oh.
in this. But it's really cool. It's really fun just to kind of see behind the scenes and what they do and all of
Honestly,
that.
I think that'd be a fun job. A GM like that.
Yeah.
I think that's why I watch.
I don't know. Lots of
Moneyball
pressure.
So often, 'cause it's
Lots
just,
of
like,
pressure. Yeah.
fun.
If you watch Draft Day,
Yeah.
I bet you'll watch it often too.
Yeah.
Especially around this time of year.
Yeah.
So, well, hey guys, let's jump into a little bit. We had a different topic that we were going to talk about today, and when we got into the studio, you guys were already having this conversation about generations and really how culturally different we are, and how our approach, coming from a church or from a place of faith and spirituality, how that looks different, how it's going to look different for coming after, man, I can't believe that I'm the old guy here now. The older generation as opposed to, down the line. And so we just wanted to jump into that. And so, Ian, I'll start with you. Tell me when you were born, what generation are you?
So I was born in 2005.
Okay.
And I am Gen Z.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
You knew your answers.
I
proud of
got
you.
them down.
Yeah. And you were born in
91.
91,
So
1991.
1991.
Yeah, that's good.
I remember the millennium happening. I was small, but I remember it.
You mean Y2K?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like I didn't still quite understand what the big deal was, but I remember people talking about
Yeah.
it.
My parents were sending me to put gas in all of our cars.
Really?
Yeah, at Y2K.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like lines and lines to get gas.
Mhm.
Yeah. I remember being downtown. We stayed in like a hotel that night
Mm-hmm.
and being bummed because nothing was going on. And there
Mhm.
was like soldiers and like trucks and stuff driving by. And that's my memory of
Y2K.
the millennium.
So you were what, 9?
Yeah.
8, 9?
Yeah. I would have just turned.
Yeah.
9.
I was 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm 84.
Oh, yeah.
Depending on where you look at where millennials started, we get wrapped into millennials. But I really think that I don't know that we're fully one way or the other. I think we're really a mix. I saw an article once that talked about, how my age bracket, it's hard to identify because we are one of the few generations that didn't have internet for half of our lives. Like Gen X, they didn't have internet, right? They grew up without the internet. I grew up half with the internet. So dial-up came out when I was in middle school. And so we didn't have cell phones, none of that stuff was really there. I got my first cell phone my freshman year of college, and my parents bought it for me. That was when you still had to pay per text.
Mhm.
Like, you had
Yeah.
you had free nights and weekends. So if you were going to make a phone call, it was after 7 at night or on the weekend. And then you had to pay for every text message that you sent. So we just didn't text ever. But the reason my parents got it for me is because I was driving 6.5 hours to go to college, and they wanted to make sure if I broke down on the road, I had a way to get a hold of somebody. And it was really cool.
Yeah.
I wasn't so cool though to have the Nokia phone that had Snake on it.
Mhm.
I don't know if can you relate? Do you even know what I'm talking about?
I think I've seen a couple of
Uh-huh.
shows
Yeah.
that have the
A couple of shows. So anyway, that's where I fall. But you are in school,
Yeah.
Alex, and
Seminary.
you are in seminary, and you're writing a paper right now
Yeah.
specifically about this topic, right?
Kind of. And so, I mean, if you've been around Crossroads, the topic right now is churches changing, culture's changing what
Yeah.
we do. And that's just been my interest. Like, what do we do? Like, how is church succeeding or failing to reach the next generation, to bring them into the church, to bring them into the family of God? And it's just been interesting, especially, I'm a millennial, still end of my 20s, about to be a leader in the church, thinking, sweet, like the millennials finally get a real voice instead of being talked about. and doing this research and realizing, oh my gosh, I think I'm already outdated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on who you're going after,
Sure.
right?
Oh,
and I
yeah.
think that's the hard thing, right? Is that with each generation, it's like creating its own subculture,
Yeah.
and then subcultures within subcultures, and so trying to have a place where, hey, we all gather together and we all love what's going on is really, really hard, and we've seen that for a long time, right? So you have the greatest generation, which is my grandparents. I don't know, were you guys' grandparents in the war? In World War II?
No, my grandparents would have been children
Okay.
during it.
Okay, so my grandparents were in World War II. They came back, gave birth to the boomers, and then the boomers grew up and they had kids, and and it goes down the line. And so boomers, it seems like we're pretty good for the most part of following what the greatest generation wanted them to do as far as the way that church works and operates. I know a lot of boomers that were pretty content in that. But then Gen X started rising up and getting older, and they're like, we don't like it. And so they, that's kind of like the birth of
The seeker church.
seeker sensitive, non-denominational, all of that came out. And then moving into then millennials who were like, anti-religion almost, where I'm spiritually up, right? You can back me up on this or tell me I'm wrong, Mr. Millennial.
So I think when I'm a child, most of my friends are saying that we're Christians. And then by the time I'm leaving high school, only a few of us are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're not, are millennials pretty anti-organization? They're more about like,
I could say that.
finding community as opposed to finding a church that is awesome.
For sure. Yeah, when I think of my generation saying what's wrong with the church, we're saying, man, it just seems shallow. We don't want the performance. We want something real. And when we're talking about something real, it's I want a community where we actually are in our lives caring about each other.
Yeah.
Like
or living it out. Like it's not a performance, but it's felt, and it's a lot of it is feel driven, correct?
I would say that's true for a lot of them. It depends on who you're talking to.
Sure. And again, this is painting a big paintbrush over everybody, but we're trying to get an understanding of the different.
I'd say I have a lot of friends where if you're going to communicate what's true or false about the world, you've got to appeal to some sort of emotional connection to reality.
Yep. Yeah, and for my generation, it was the big talk was absolute truth. I think every talk in high school from our youth group was about absolute truth, and if there was a thing of absolute truth or not. And so then going to college and going to Bible college and trying to think, man, how are we going to change the world? I was very much still a part of the seeker-friendly drive of, man, we just want to cast a big net, and once we have people here, hopefully then we can really help them understand how amazing Jesus really is. So then shifting on to the next generation, and so now Ian is in high school. What do you see as far as when it comes through, maybe not necessarily maybe Christians or people who would say they're a Christian in high school, but even just in general, the feeling of spirituality or religion in general, what is the culture of that generation?
Yeah, so I thought it was really interesting to hear both of your perspectives on like Christians in high school, because right now, like you said that you like getting out of high school, people you notice more people started becoming not non-Christian,
drifting away.
Yeah. And then you said that throughout high school it was pretty much Christian, right?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, it's a mixed bag. I mean, I think that you always have a significant drop off after high school when kids are no longer at home with their parents and they get to start making their own decisions. It seems that either you're connected at that point or you're not.
Yeah, but for me personally, I have the majority of my friends are probably not Christian. So that was kind of interesting to see that. I have a lot of.
Hold on, where's the mute button? I'm just kidding. No, I'm messing with you.
I have a lot of Christian friends, but I also would say the majority of my friends are either atheist or Hinduism or along
Other religions.
Buddhism,
Interesting.
along those lines. I also come from a more progressive and left-leaning school with my charter school right now, but I think it's definitely interesting to see that my generation doesn't necessarily identify with the Christian like majority as your guys' generations do.
Sure.
So as far as like what you were saying about like, truth and like what each of your generation's ideas of what the church were, I would definitely have to say that my generation is more about love and like acceptance of the population.
Yeah, interesting.
So it's less about like seeking I'm not sure how to put it, but like it's more about like accepting
Love and acceptance
Love and
as opposed to
acceptance.
what is truth.
Yeah. So I think definitely a big movement is like, a lot of the stuff
You
coming
guys
out.
are reverting to the 70s.
Exactly. It's
I get it.
It's coming back.
Just want to love each other.
Yeah.
We all get along. I get it. And I think that, so we're having a conversation here, and I totally get like love and acceptance, as you are a human being and you have value and you deserve love and you deserve to be a part of a community and be accepted. But at the same time, when I think about that word love, I think that we butcher what it actually means. And so I'm curious, what would it sounds like the definition of love would be acceptance.
I think for my generation, it probably would be.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have to agree with you that like there's a lot of misconception about what love is.
Yeah. I mean, because I love my kid, but I give him boundaries because I love him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm not going to accept him sticking his hand on the stove.
Yeah.
Because I know it's wrong and I know it's going to cause harm to him.
Yeah.
So is it loving for me to say, yeah, go ahead, do whatever you want. It's cool.
Yeah.
Or is it more loving for me to be like, no, I'm going to protect you from that because I'm aware of its dangers?
Yeah, I definitely think, especially now, there's a drive for acceptance, but then there's also a drive for over acceptance.
Okay.
Where it becomes like there's not so much of a boundary between like what is right and what is wrong, and just trying to love the minority or love when it's not like showing equality. It's more of like showing more love to fill in for that equality.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Sure.
And that's still harmful for what the drive is, and it's kind of
Yeah.
So I've got a question for you. So
Yeah.
you're saying also like a lot of your friends from school or whatever are atheists, wouldn't identify as Christian,
yeah.
but would agree like acceptance is like one of the primary values we have. Would you feel like that same value gets extended to you, that as a Christian they're also working towards you like being shown acceptance or love in that way?
That's hard. I think growing up, it was definitely a struggle between like, oh, we're being taught now that like we came from monkeys or like that kind of stuff. But now I think growing a little bit, and I'm not sure if this is like our society aging or if it's just me developing, but it feels like now I feel more accepted and it's just like kind of okay. Whereas it might just have been being emotional in middle school rather than this was actually what was happening. But I think I feel a little bit more accepted now.
I would guess, this is just me guessing, okay, but they would accept you as a Christian as long as your values aren't pushing non-acceptance of others.
Yeah, I think definitely within the school system right now, it's like we're not going to push our values onto you, and it's especially becoming a high schooler. It's like, okay, there's respect. There's respect between the people who are teaching me, the people who believe this, and it's like I respect your beliefs and you respect my beliefs, and we're not going to like push each other, but we can hear from each other and see what each other has to offer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I know that you're reading a book right now called The Rise of the Nuns.
Yeah.
And it's about these nuns from France that rise from the dead. It's actually a zombie book.
Not quite.
No, it's not. Okay, so The Rise of the Nuns. Define for me what a nun is, and then tell me about, this is James Emery White,
Yeah.
wrote this book. So define for me a nun, and then explain to me what exactly is he talking about in this book.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, the book's got two parts. So he's talking about first what is a nun, and then what does the church do in a world where nuns are rising. And so basically, a nun, None,
Not N-U-N.
no,
Got it.
it's representing what is the fastest growing religious group in America, which is none. So when people are being asked, what religion do you identify with, they're saying none. But now, to be clear,
Nun religion.
Yeah, none religion, which is different than atheists. They're not necessarily saying we deny the existence of God. We're all atheists.
Right.
A lot of them probably
And that's different
are.
from like millennials too, right? Because millennials were like, I don't want the big organization. I want community, but I still have faith in Christianity as a religion.
Yeah.
They just wanted to practice it maybe differently or experience it differently.
Yeah.
Where it sounds like the nuns are more people that go, I think that there's something I don't identify with any of them.
I think when I'm in high school, I'm surrounded by a lot of friends who are saying, I want to follow Jesus, but I don't know why I have to get up early on Sunday and go to church to do that. Like I can go hiking on my weekend. I can hang out with my friends. I can follow Jesus on my own, and I don't need the church. And I think in some ways the nuns that White is talking about is then going further, where people are saying, I don't actually even need Jesus to be connected to God. And you get this phrase that we have now of spiritual and not religious. So they're not atheists, but they're just saying, I don't need a religion or a church or organized anything to be a part of kind of this new age God's and everything.
Would they identify then? They wouldn't even identify with Jesus, or they would just say God is not yet defined, and so I can be spiritual and be connected with God. And not have to have a religion telling me what that looks like.
See, that's where it gets interesting. A nun can technically be both.
Okay.
So you can have a nun who's saying, I'm spiritual and not religious. Like, I'm not going to define my God. I just, whatever it is, I can connect to it on my own. And then you do have the people who are, I'm a Christian, but I'm not going to say I'm a Baptist or a Catholic or whatever. And I'm not going to say I'm a part of a church. And still say I'm not really religious. I'm just spiritual.
Yeah. So then what's the conclusion of this book? Did you finish it?
I did finish it, yeah. So the conclusion is him just saying that our culture is changing. We were in a place where everyone was going to church, a part of the church as an organization, because culturally that's just what you did. And then as that slowly started to change, though people weren't necessarily going to church out of cultural obligation, they were still probably a Christian. And so the church at that point really only needed to nudge people into church. Like, hey, you're already following Jesus. You know and believe the gospel. Let's go and, be active in the church. And him saying, but now people aren't saying, I'm not going to go to church because I don't believe they're God. They're going to say, I'm not going to go to church because I don't see any value in it.
Yeah.
And so he's then going to respond and say, how does the church talk to the Gen Z and say, hey, church is actually valuable. You should wake up early on Sunday and go to church because it is an important part of the faith.
So I know, Ian, you're really involved, and I mean, part of that is your parents are really involved, and so I mean, they're coming, you're coming at some point. But for you, or just for your generation, when it comes to organized religion or church, does it seem more like we're moving in this direction of where they just don't see any value in that?
I would have to say so. I think a lot of the church right now is going along with some of the older generations. And
what do you mean by that?
I mean like on weekends, like
okay.
I can't give an example of what Gen Z's looking for because I don't know myself. But it feels like it's specified to some of the older generations, some of the songs, some of the like reading. It's just I definitely think this sermon we just did was very good for a lot of the
one about I can't believe in a God who all the followers are hypocrites.
Yeah, and all of the
whole series.
Yeah, we
okay, yeah.
I think that I think a lot of our sermons have been getting better at like dedicating to some of the younger generations, and but
answering some of those questions, maybe.
Yeah. I definitely think the church style has been a little outdated for a little bit, and maybe has been comfortable for some of the older generations, but it feels like maybe some of the newer generations want something new.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I think also comes with like I can be a Christian without like necessarily having to like go to church. I know a lot, and especially through COVID right now, a lot of my friends who are Christian are like, I don't because their parents aren't going to church or aren't going online. So they're thinking like, okay, well, I'm still a Christian and I still feel good in my faith. Like I don't know what the necessity of this is if I went like a whole year now without like
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'm curious, and we can speak about this from personal perspectives. But what was coming from your generation? What was your driver that said, "Man, I mean, we have that experience where we've interacted with Jesus, and we say, man, I want to follow Jesus." But then when it comes to living that out, what was the driver of you getting connected with the church? So I know for me, it was really important to know that my life had purpose and that it was going to make a difference. And so I wanted to invest into something and into a place that was going to make a difference for the kingdom and a difference for my community. And I know for maybe you can speak a little bit to what about millennials? What is your driver personally and for the millennial generation? A lot of it, I would think, would be some of it at least was social justice. Is that right?
To some extent, and I mean, some of it could be explained by my own personal story, but when I think of myself back in college, where I'm now mostly in charge of my life, I'm deciding if I'm going to go to church or not. The big thing is I've got to be a part of a real community, and I think some of it is the generation thing where, I mean, I was texting people in 6th grade. You know, I was on MySpace when it came out.
Oh yeah,
and
that's
I got
right.
off when it died.
That's where I started talking to my wife.
Yeah,
I was on MySpace.
Yeah, and we were starting to realize that Facebook even doesn't.
Do you know what
work.
MySpace is?
I do know what MySpace is.
Yeah.
I didn't want you to feel alienated.
yeah,
You know.
Yeah. So, you know, I made the conversion from MySpace to Facebook, and in college somewhere realized that this isn't actually real connection. I think a lot of us felt that way of we're missing out on community in a way that we thought we weren't.
Yeah.
And that the church is the real answer to make sure that we're a part of something real and we're not just showing up for a sermon, some music. And
real is a very millennial word, isn't it? I want it to be
is
real.
I don't know. I guess
I think that it is.
I use it often, I guess.
Real and authentic.
Yes.
Genuine.
Oh yeah, I've been part of so many ministries where authentic community is like the key word.
Authentic
key
community, genuine.
Yeah.
Being real.
Yeah.
Not putting on a face or a facade, saying, "Hey, I'm a screw up, and that's okay, and Jesus is what saves me."
Yeah.
I don't have to put on the face and go to church and be a Christian. You know, I can follow Jesus where I'm at, and I just go and get judged there anyway. So finding, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all of those things are things that I've heard. I know that for me, that was frustrating in trying to lead the millennial generation was trying to make spaces for community where they're like, I want community. And you're like, okay, here's 3 options for you to get involved in. And they're like, that's too much work. I don't want to do that.
So running a young adult ministry, that was the paradox of you have these millennials.
Yes.
Like, yes, I
That's
want
the right
to be a
word
part
for
of
it.
community, but then you only have a half, if even that, who are actually going to make the commitment.
Yeah.
Because
And then even
community
then,
requires it.
and then you lose another halfway through.
Yeah.
Where they're like, meh.
Oh yeah.
Here's all right.
Yeah, it definitely shapes and evolves over time as you have people getting committed.
Yeah.
But then we are transient. You have people moving and going.
Absolutely.
We've had people that were great friends, and the reason they're not there anymore isn't because they said we don't want anything to do with it. They moved.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of these conversations, I'm speaking for boomers and the great generation now, which is not okay because they're not here to represent themselves. But I would think that mindset of church or religious organization of not being the central of your culture has to be a bit confusing, right? And I think that when COVID hit, like the thing that we saw, at least at our church, is that those generations were the ones that were faithfully true. Like it's part of their DNA and their culture to be at church on Sunday. And so they're the first ones that, even though there are people who didn't come back because of the fear of stuff, right away, those were the ones that we saw, even figuring out how to be online and things like that was because it's part of who they are. It makes up their culture and their identity is that's what we do on Sundays. We go to church. So now shifting to
Yeah.
back to you, Ian. What do you see culturally when it comes to religious organizations or church? What is your generation looking for when it comes to spirituality, or are they?
I'm not sure because like you were saying,
Maybe
like
it's still developing.
yeah, I was gonna say it's like for me personally, I know there's a lot of older Gen Z because it what's the oldest range for a Gen Z? It's like
I have no idea.
20 something. I don't know.
Uh,
But yeah, there I think especially for my age bracket, it's still developing. But I would definitely say that like I think the older generations do need that like church presence for their faith and for their, but I think especially a lot of the new Gen Z are taking more of like the sense of like I'm thinking of like during Jesus's time, like he he wasn't like specifically in a church. Like it wasn't a body, it wasn't like it was a body in the sense of people, but it wasn't in a body in the sense of like
a building.
a building
Mhm.
or like a facility or an organization. It
I
was,
mean, he went and he spoke at the temple and
Yeah.
synagogues and things like that.
yeah.
Um, but it seems like a lot of those conversations were, "Hey, I'm here to tell you why you're doing it wrong."
Yeah.
Is that right? I'm looking at you, seminary.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think he's making comments necessarily on the gathering, but rather maybe the reasons that they're gathering, or if
Yes.
anything, really the fact that the gathering isn't then affecting the rest of their
Yeah.
lives.
So then, here's my question for you. So Acts 2:42,
Mhm.
that's like, I know for millennials too, like that was a big deal to,
Oh yeah.
we went to that all the time. Like, oh my God, I want to be an Acts 2:42 church.
Heck yeah.
You know, so it just says they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, right, to the fellowship, gathering together, being together, to the breaking of bread and the prayers, and and that's the Acts 2:42
Yeah,
church, right?
yeah.
And so, I mean, you can go on and read that whole paragraph if
Mhm.
you want to, but I mean that this is why for me truth was so important, is because establishing what is our baseline for truth,
Mhm.
right? And so you can get into those conversations of our truth or my truth and your truth and da 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 da. There's a good guy that always said, it's either the man or the bus. It's never both. And so we can't. Truth is truth. You don't get to decide one truth and you decide another, and I get to decide a third, and we're all right,
Mhm.
right? Like it's if it's truth, it has to be true. And so then my question is how do you then take the gospel into these different generations and be effective in that, even if this generation's not concerned about truth, they're just
Mhm.
concerned about loving. And so you say, hey, this is what the Bible says, and they say, well, I don't care what the Bible says.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect me. Yeah, you have something?
Yeah. Well, I think this is where James White really makes his interesting pivotal argument of saying for a long time, the American evangelical church, because that's his perspective, has been an Acts 2 church. And if you think about what's happening before this passage, is Peter just gave a sermon about Jesus to a bunch of Jews. And he gave it to them in the context of the Jewish faith, because that's what they all were right then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where then he contrasts it with Paul in Acts 17, where he's now, he's in the Roman Empire. He's talking with philosophers and Greeks, and he's not giving a sermon like Peter's because he's got to start at the beginning. He's got to start
Yeah.
with creation.
You got to meet people where they're at.
Exactly. And he's saying that's what our culture needs to do is we're churching in a lot of ways
Yeah.
to what was once a church culture. And now in the rise of the nuns, we're not in a church culture anymore. And so you've got to begin with where are they at? Because I bet you they don't understand the importance of a God, of a faith tradition, and let alone being a part of a church.
Yeah. And we're not going to solve this problem today. But I think that it's worth just stimulating the thoughts and the conversations, especially for people who have been in the church for a long time, to start thinking through, okay, what does it look like for it to not be about me? What does it look like, and even our generation, right? When I'm 37. So what does it look like for me to say, okay, it's not about me and what I like and what I want, but how can I see what God is doing? How can I see where God is at work, and how can I participate in that mission of bringing Jesus to every generation? And I think that that's just a a question that we're going to have to continue asking, and I think that we have to trust too that none of this is a mystery to Jesus. That He knows what He's doing. He is actively building His church all the time, and through experiences, through knowledge, through all kinds of different means, and so we can trust that He's going to lead that the way in that. And so, but I just want to thank you guys both for coming on, and it was really sporadic for you, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We had no idea that Ian was going to join us today. We had a different topic in mind, and we kind of shifted gears. And so, any other last thoughts before we wrap up from any of you?
I was gonna say really quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Off of what Alex said, I think definitely for my generation, it's less about like evangelical or like pushing like the faith,
Mm-hmm.
and more about just like showing love.
Yeah.
And it's
What
like
does that look like?
I think it like I have a lot of friends, like I said, that are atheist or Buddhist or whatever, and I don't feel like I need to press or like explain anything to them. I just kind of need to like show them that I care about them, and I'm not gonna like
Yeah.
think of them a different way
Yeah.
because of like their
Yeah.
affiliation.
And it's a relationship, right?
Yeah.
We always say you have to earn the right to have the conversation. And so just going and throwing your Bible at somebody probably isn't going to be very effective. But if you can have a good enough relationship that you can have conversation and then trust that the Holy Spirit's going to do something in that.
Yeah.
So I think that's good. I don't know what that means for the church at large, but at least on an individual basis, we have an action plan here.
Well, the Holy Spirit's been pushing this for a good solid 2,000 years, so
That's right.
I think the train's gonna keep on moving.
Yeah, that's right.
With or without us.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thanks so much for joining with me today on the podcast. We are wrapping up this week our series on I Can't Believe in a God Who. So Ian referenced that. If you want to go to our YouTube channel, you can check that out. All of our messages and our full services are there. Our past podcasts are there. If you're listening to this, you've probably already found our podcast somewhere. so that's good. Otherwise, I don't know how you're listening to it. But go ahead and check out our other content, and we look forward to being with you again in a couple weeks.